Welcome to A Slob Comes Clean, the podcast. I'm Dana White, and I blog almost every day over at aslobcomesclean.com. That's where I share my personal deslobification journey. The completely honest and never-ending story of me getting my own home under control. And as I figure out what works, I share the truth about cleaning and organizing strategies. Thanks for joining me today. This is podcast number 57. Could you tell that I totally just had to pause it to go find out what podcast number this was? That kind of demonstrates what's going on with me right now. I'm just going to let you know. I am working on a book proposal, trying to get a traditionally published book out there. So that's kind of consuming, and basically I'm throwing everything else to the side in my life and saying no to everything so that I can work on that and get that done, because I do have a deadline for getting that proposal finished. So, it's been a little bit crazy around here, and I thought about not doing a podcast, and then I decided, you know what, I just love my podcast listeners. So I'm going to do one. So we'll see how this goes for podcast number 57. I'm going to talk about awkward pauses. That's what I'm calling this one. Funny little story though before that is my family and I, so we have a lot of fun together. I think you know that if you've listened to my other podcasts, and if you've, anyway, we have a lot of fun. So right now our big recurring joke is I don't have the time to deal with that because I'm writing a book about cleaning. So like everything, every mess is like, I'm sorry, I can't deal with that. I'm writing a book about cleaning. So yeah, I know it's crazy, and I'm an oversharer, and but I'm not going to hide from anybody that when I get tunnel vision, as I've talked about many times, that's when things get crazy in the house, and you kind of have to have tunnel vision when you are working on a book. That's just part of it. So anyway, okay, so awkward pauses happen. I'm not a big fan of awkward pauses. I wrote a blog post about this that's in my daily Deslobification Blogcast podcasts, which is kind of confusing to say. But anyway, it's just, the reading, the audio versions of the blogs. But I want to talk more about that because awkward pauses are some of those times that I think people like me don't naturally think, oh, I have a minute to do this. Where I think that's kind of one of those things that normal people have over us. I remember before I started my blog, and even after, just watching, being in the home, especially when I'm staying with people like my mother-in-law or my sister-in-law who have just this it seems naturally clean house. It's only clean because they actually, pick up and do their daily tasks, even though I don't know that they have to analyze and figure out what daily tasks are going to make the biggest difference and all that kind of stuff like I do, because those things seem to come naturally to them. But I can remember sitting there one time, we're at my sister-in-law's house, and, we're just sitting there talking, not really doing anything. And she just gets up and starts wiping down cabinets. And while we're talking, and I thought, that is so odd to me. Here it is. There's kind of like, what to do now? And the thing that just naturally comes to her is to go wipe down cabinets or countertops. And it's just, those are the things that don't immediately come to my head. And so I kind of have to look at awkward pauses and say, when I get that feeling from an awkward pause. So for example, okay, one of the things I talked about in the blog post was our school year this year. It is just full of awkward pauses. And I'm assuming that this is the beginning of this kind of next phase of my life. My kids are in 7th grade, 5th grade, and 3rd grade. And, one of the things that I have finally accepted as a parent, and I have to find myself re-accepting it over and over and over, is just that there is no such thing as getting parenting down. There's no such thing as, okay, we have established our routine. There's part of me that thinks, okay, well, once we're like retired and all that, maybe we'll have a routine that lasts us through the rest of our life. And then I think, nah, it's not really going to happen, because I watch my parents, who kind of have mine and my husband's similar personalities. And yeah, they're crazy. They're always doing things. I mean, I think my in-laws definitely got to that point where it's just kind of like the same routine for years upon years, but not my parents. They travel all over the place and they do stuff. My mom's writing a book and getting it published and all this kind of crazy stuff. So, I mean, there's no hope for me to ever have a boring life, which I'm glad about, right? Okay, but so in parenting, especially, I remember my first son started sleeping through the night, and we had a routine. And he was about 4 months old, and I thought, okay, I have figured out parenting. Whew. I've talked before, he had some eating issues, which were a huge challenge for us and made me cry all the time, just trying to figure out this, getting him to learn how to eat, basically. So, the first 6 weeks of life was him screaming bloody murder for hours upon hours every time it was time to eat, and us working through that, so it's like we got that down. He was 6 weeks old. We got sleeping down. Okay. We finally kind of had this routine going. And then at 4 months, he, started teething. And so that was a whole new thing that I hadn't experienced before. And babies aren't happy when they teeth, and routine goes out the window because everything changes. And it was just kind of this introduction into, don't get too comfortable. All right. Life happens and life changes, and then I kind of had my routine established once my youngest was 18 months and my oldest was 4, and we were, or 5, whatever, I don't know. Anyway, and we had our routine and we were getting things done. And then the oldest went to school, and oh my goodness, that's a whole new thing when it's no longer me that decides how our schedule runs, because school kind of decides that, and we have sports and those kinds of things. So it's just kind of that, don't get too comfortable. Well, this year has been the beginning of the next phase of life, as we've had school related sports, which means that we don't just come home in the afternoons. And anyway, so it's been full of awkward pauses because the kids don't all start school at the same time. So there's no getting everybody to school and then getting going on my day, that kind of thing, like I used to do for the last however many years that I've had them all in school. There's get these kids to school and then come home for 30 minutes and get this one to school. And now the youngest is in 3rd grade, so she has some after school stuff. So we end up with, one kid's done at 3, one's done at 4, one's done at 5. One day a week we have some sort of, football or basketball or track or something that we all go to. It's just crazy. So it's full of awkward pauses. It's like not being able to say, okay, every single day at this time, I am going to do this daily task. That doesn't happen because every day is different. People have different activities, and that's just part of it. I'm finally starting to grasp the moms who say they feel like a taxi driver. I was always like, oh yeah, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, I actually feel that way. I feel like I spend so much time in my car taking kids from places to places, or from place to place, whatever. So it's, there's no, I'm going to do this every day at 6 o'clock, because we don't know that we're going to be home at 6 o'clock every day. So instead, to me, that's the beauty of boiling it down to 4 basic habits that will keep my house out of chaos, or will bring it out of chaos when I do get that tunnel vision from things like writing a book about cleaning. When I get that tunnel vision, okay, it's going to get crazy, but if I focus back on those 4 basic habits, then it's going to bring me out of that. And I've said this before, but I didn't want 28 Days to Hope for Your Home to be checklist based, because for me, I lose checklists. I forget to look at checklists. I forget that I have checklists. But if I can get it boiled down so far that I can remember these 4 basic habits, then that's the kind of stuff that works with the awkward pauses. If I have an awkward pause of 5 minutes between, I don't know, while the water's boiling for the pasta on the stove, if that's my awkward pause, then I don't necessarily have time to run and go find my list that's been buried underneath other papers or wherever. I just need to go, okay, this is an awkward pause. I'm feeling that, well, what am I doing right now? Okay, then I'm going to check something off of my list, my very basic list that is, okay, are the dishes done? Are there dishes that I can put into the dishwasher? Oh, oops, I never emptied it this morning. Okay, well then that's what I need to do in this 5 minutes instead of standing around hemming and hawing and thinking, okay, what do I do? It gives me that focus to say, I'm going to use this awkward pause and I'm going to work my way down the list. Okay, good. Yes, I did empty the dishwasher this morning while my kids were eating breakfast, which is my normal routine. Sometimes I miss it, so I use an awkward pause later in the day when something random happens, like, I don't know, heating up my oatmeal in the microwave or whatever it is that I'm doing. Okay, that's a time where I kind of have that, 5 minutes of what do I do? I don't have any time for big projects. And that's, I think, the difference between understanding what it takes to keep my house under control versus the project mentality that I had before I started my blog, when I thought, okay, well, there's no point in doing anything unless I clean it from top to bottom. That's not true. There is a real point in doing little piddly tasks. They make a much bigger impact than I ever thought. So what piddly task can I do in these 5 minutes that I have, or in these 90 seconds that I have? I can put a few things from the sink into the dishwasher. And amazingly, if I'm doing that 4 different times throughout the day, 90 seconds pretty much is plenty of time for me to keep the sink clear of dirty dishes and putting them in the dishwasher, or, sweeping the kitchen. It's amazing how little time those things take if I will just tackle as much as I can in the awkward pauses that I have throughout my day, if that makes sense. Okay. So I'm just going to talk about those 4 basic habits and what they are and how they can work with those awkward pauses. The first one obviously is keeping the dishes done. Okay. Doing 90 seconds worth of dishes here, or 5 minutes worth of dishes here, or it honestly, the main awkward pause that I have every single day is about 20 to 30 minutes between the time when I drop my daughter off for school, I come back home, and then I take my junior hire to school. 20 to 30 minutes is actually a long time. It doesn't seem like it when you just say it out loud, but if I spend 20 minutes or 30 minutes focusing on, hey, I'm just going to plow through my daily checklist here, I can get it all done, the whole entire daily checklist. If I will just say, okay, I'm going to use these 20 to 30 minutes for this purpose. And it's amazing how even in the midst of crazy tunnel vision, like writing a book, I can't, 30 minutes is not long enough for me to sit down, gather my thoughts, get focused, and write. Honestly, that does not work in 30 minutes, but I can do the mindless task of loading my dishwasher, or emptying my dishwasher, or sweeping the kitchen, or running around and checking the bathrooms to make sure that, just checking them for clutter, in 28 Days to Hope for Your Home, which is my ebook that talks you through those basic 4 habits. I just check the bathrooms for clutter. It's like a slob vision combat is what's going on here. It's not necessarily that I'm going to go clean the bathrooms, but I'm going to check them for clutter. And what I find happens is I realize when I have 20 to 30 minutes that I go to check the bathrooms for clutter, and I realize, you know what, I've got 10 minutes I could spend in this bathroom. And if I will spend 10 minutes in the bathroom, it's amazing the huge difference that's made, cleaning that bathroom in 10 minutes. It's not this huge monumental task that I make it up to be in my mind. And I say, I'm just going to do what I can in 10 minutes. It's amazing, the difference that can make. It's basically cleaned in 10 minutes. No, I'm not pulling out the mop bucket in 10 minutes, but when I say, well, I'm just going to do what I can with, some cleaning wipes, or, just spraying it down and wiping it down with the dirty towel. I don't know. Of course, that's kind of gross, right? But, wiping the floor with the dirty towel, those things. I mean, it's amazing the difference that can make in the visual, the impact that can make in that space. Another thing that I do, Mondays, when I come home for that 30 minutes or that 20 minutes, between the drop-offs, well, that's the perfect time to make sure that the laundry is, going, because Monday is my laundry day. So, a lot of times I try to time it so that a load will be done by the time, and be ready to change over in that 30 minutes. Then on Mondays, between the time, now right now it has changed because that's what's happening, but for a long time I was getting home from, leading a rehearsal with these kids at 4, and then at 5 I had to go pick up my kid who'd been practicing for band. So, that was another 30-minute time in the day. So 2 30-minute times in the day, those were perfect times where I didn't resent having to go stop everything and change over a load of laundry and get it all folded and put away. Now, I had to do that a couple of times during the day, but 2 of the times when I did it, there was no resentfulness of having to stop, because it was like, oh, okay, good. I can get this done in this little awkward pause that I have throughout my day. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stop there just so that I can get back to work on my big project. But I do want to make sure that that I love hearing in the comments of the podcast. Just go to podcast 57. You can find it by going to aslobcomesclean.com/podcasts with an S. Scroll down and click on podcast 57. If it is not there, just go to see all my podcasts here, and you will be able to find it. It should be one of the first ones. If it's not, just scroll down to the bottom and see older posts here, and you'll get to it eventually. I know it's like I have no hope for keeping that updated, but I am working on getting something figured out to keep that updated consistently. So thanks for joining me. And remember that you can go to aslobcomesclean.com/connect and find me on all my social media channels. I also highly encourage you to sign up for my email list. That is the best way to make sure that you do not miss any new things that are coming up. Also, next week, this is, April 17th. I believe it starts on the 20th, which is Monday. The Ultimate Homemaking Bundle will be available. I participated in this a couple of years ago, and I have an ebook that is part of it now, Drowning in Clutter. And you're going to be amazed at the resources that are available altogether. I mean, the value is, I believe it's over $1,000. And I mean, just in various things. And obviously, you're not going to need every single ebook that is part of that, but I'm guessing most people are going to be able to say, wow, this is a great value for me. Even if I don't read all these, I can get, these 7 or 8 ebooks that totally interest me and I've always wanted, or they are a subject that I want to explore more. And those will make the value absolutely worth it to you. I think the price is going to be about $30. So if you are interested in, if you like ebooks, even if you don't, you should go look and just see, because it might change your mind. So, but that's going to be available on the 20th. It is only available for 1 week. So make sure you do not miss out on that opportunity. And obviously, if you're listening to this in the future, I'm sorry. Okay. I'm sorry. But just make sure that you go and check that out. Thank you so much for joining me, and I will talk to you next week. Hopefully. All right. Bye.